Now, doctors who have been struck off or even suspended have been ignoring sanctions imposed by the General Medical Council and carrying on working regardless. A Channel 4 News investigation discovered 17 cases over the past 3 years where doctors have simply been flouting the very restrictions meant to protect the public. These include one who failed to spot a baby had meningitis, sending him home with cowpole. The baby later died. In this special report, our health and social care correspondent Victoria MacDonald asks whether the watchdog, which is supposed to keep patients safe, is failing to do so.
It was lovely. He was happiest, laid back, bonniest baby, lovely personality. He was just adorable. This is my favourite ever. Smiley, smiley face. It just looks...
Well, that was him all over, wasn't it?
Yeah, just
always
laughed all
smiling.
the time.
I think he came out, popped out smiling, didn't he?
Joshua Davis was a first grandchild, cherished and adored by his close-knit family. But in November 2005, when he was just 9 months old, he became ill. At Barnet General Hospital, Dr. Godwin Duru was on duty in A&E that night. He examined Joshua, but simply prescribed painkillers and said the baby could go home once his temperature had gone down.
He kept looking at his watch the whole time. He was very dismissive towards us. If he just couldn't wait to get out, to get home. He said to just take cowpole and Nurofen, and that was it really.
The Davis family left the hospital, but just a few hours later they were back. It was too late though, and Joshua died. A post-mortem revealed that he had had meningitis and septicemia. The Davis family referred Duru to the General Medical Council. That's the body who is there specifically to protect patients by regulating doctors. With Duru, they found him negligent and placed restrictions on the way he could practice. Each year, the GMC imposes sanctions on doctors like Duru. Some have conditions placed on them, others are suspended, while some can even be struck off the medical register, no longer able to practice. But an investigation by Channel 4 News has revealed that the system for enforcing and monitoring these sanctions appears to be flawed, raising questions about whether the public is actually being adequately protected. In Dr. Duru's case, the GMC said he could keep practicing, but that he had to have a named person supervising him. By now, he was working as a GP in Barnet, and he did what he was supposed to. He told his bosses about the ruling. But here is the flaw in the system. He had a second job at a local GP out-of-hours service. Crucially, he failed to tell them about his GMC hearing and the restrictions imposed upon him. When the company received fresh complaints about his work, they investigated and suddenly uncovered those restrictions.
That was quite alarming for us, that somebody could continue to work for us and not inform us of the restrictions that were imposed.
Duru was dismissed by the company, and they now employ extra staff to regularly check that all 250 doctors on their books are legitimately working. But the case is causing alarm.
He's showing complete contempt for his patients, for the public, for his profession, his colleagues who are conscientious. I think that's an intolerable situation.
What's the point of us going through all this rigmarole for him to carry on doing what he was doing in the past? There's no point, is there?
Dr. Duru told Channel 4 News.
The GMC have systematically failed to administer justice and fairness. In my 10 years of active service as a GP in Barnet, I am proud to say that my record of providing high-quality medical care was impeccable. My complaint rate from my patients was well below both national and local PCT average. I regret not informing Hearts Urgent Care about the conditions on my practice. The GMC has admonished me for that.
Experts believe the Duru case highlights a fundamental problem with the current GMC system for monitoring guilty doctors. Because quite simply, it leaves it up to that same doctor to be open and honest with his employers, to tell them that the GMC has decided that they pose a risk to patients.
The current system doesn't protect patients as well as it should do. It's dependent on the truthfulness and honesty of the doctor.
Channel 4 News has examined the findings of GMC hearings over the past 3 years, and we've discovered that Duru is far from alone. In fact, he is one of 17 cases where doctors have had restrictions placed on them and have failed to tell their employers. Astonishingly, in 4 of the cases, the doctors were actually banned from working, but just carried on. The most shocking example we found was former GP Stuart Green. Green served a prison sentence for injecting an unsuspecting patient with heroin and keeping the rest of the dose for himself. Once out of prison, he started working as a GP again. But he was suspended once more by the GMC for working without informing his employers about his criminal past. He simply ignored this suspension though. Despite having been told he couldn't work, he carried on seeing patients here in this Hackney GP practice without telling his bosses for another 2 months. The GMC has new plans to reassess doctors every 3 years, and they hope this will address many of the concerns.
I believe that the new system that we're going to put in place from the end of this year will mean that doctors in this country who have conditions or who are suspended will have a tighter control on them than almost anywhere else in the world. We are determined to make sure that when we impose conditions or suspensions, there will be systems in place to ensure that doctors comply with that, and where they don't, we will take action.
But even if the GMC does strike someone off the medical register, we've discovered that that person can still carry on calling themselves a doctor, and that means that they can mislead patients into believing that they are being treated by a bona fide registered practitioner. Just like this man, Michael Shiel, a private cosmetic doctor who was struck off 5 years ago for misconduct, including prescribing the wrong drugs and being aggressive to patients. But anyone looking at his current website would think he still was a genuine registered doctor. So we made an appointment because we wanted to see if he would correct that impression. On the phone, the receptionist said he was a qualified doctor. And strictly speaking, this is correct. He is qualified, but he has also been struck off. He works at the same clinic in Ashford in Kent as he was before he was struck off.
So just fill out that registration form.
Yep.
Staff at the clinic ask patients to fill out a medical questionnaire and consent form, and they refer to him as the doctor.
If you want to go ahead and sign it,
Yeah.
that's fine. If you want to wait until you've seen the doctor and then sign.
Okay, thank you.
So do you want to come
Yes, I will.
We wanted to discuss Botox. Dr. Shiel is careful to stick to treatments that can be carried out by a non-registered practitioner. But there is a law against individuals giving the impression that they are registered doctors when they're not.
So what did you originally qualify in? You were a GP?
Yes, a GP.
And then you just started specialising?
Well, that's how I got into this.
Yeah.
And we gave him opportunities to correct the impression that he was a registered doctor.
And it's much more reassuring to see, not to go to, your hairdresser for this. As I say, I have a very low pain threshold.
On this, and on a number of occasions, he failed to explain that in fact he had been struck off for serious misconduct.
I just wanted to come to a proper doctor. I know you pay more for it, but...
So there you are. I mean,
We showed the footage to Guy Gozem QC, a barrister with experience in medical disciplinary cases.
He had an opportunity to say, well, I'm not licensed. I'm actually not on the medical register any longer, but he chose not to.
But you've done it lots before.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
Is giving a perfect impression of a doctor with a license to practice.
What's wrong with that?
Well, he doesn't have a license to practice. He's not registered. He's been erased from the medical register. One might expect, if he were to be straightforward, shall we say, him to say, well, actually, I'm no longer registered and I don't have a license to practice.
We told the GMC about Dr. Shiel, and they have said they are investigating.
Someone who calls themselves a doctor is saying no more than they've got a degree. The question is, are they portraying themselves as a medical practitioner, as a medical doctor? And the law is clear about that. If you do that and you are not a medical doctor, you are breaking the criminal law, and the police should prosecute.
But convictions in this area are notoriously difficult to obtain, and Dr. Shiel is working in an area of medicine not especially well regulated. Guy Gozum says there needs to be urgent reform.
Somewhere between the sledgehammer of a prosecution and light touch regulation, there has to be a way of helping the public not fall into this sort of trap, and indeed of protecting the reputation of the regulator, because this is would appear to be a failure.
In response, Dr. Shiel said he was legally allowed to use the title doctor and to administer Botox. He added,
"The journalist who attended the clinic under the pretence of obtaining treatment never asked at the consultation if I was registered with the General Medical Council. If she had done so, she would have been told no, as you do not have to be registered with the General Medical Council to administer Botox."
Last month, Duru was suspended from working as a doctor while the General Medical Council investigates new concerns about his practice. Green was finally struck off the medical register in 2009, 11 years after he was first reported to the GMC. And Shiel remains struck off the medical register, and the GMC said they are keen to review our footage.
Victoria MacDonald reporting.